When you hear the word Viking, what is the first thing that comes to mind? Most likely, it's a massive, fierce warrior with an unkempt beard, wearing a helmet with huge horns, doing nothing but fighting and plundering. Pop culture has created an incredibly vivid, but almost entirely fictional image. What if I told you that Vikings were among the cleanest people of their time? That they bleached their hair blonde, loved board games, and built ships that were centuries ahead of their time. And yes, they never, absolutely never, wore horned helmets. Today, we are traveling 1,000 years back to the era of the harsh North. We'll peek into the homes of ordinary Scandinavians, break down their strange laws, find out how they managed to discover America long before Columbus, and see why their real story is far more interesting than any Hollywood blockbuster. Let's deal with the main symbol right away, the one that migrates from movie to movie: horned helmets. If you met a real Viking in the 9th century and asked where his horns were, he would be very confused. Archaeologists have found hundreds of helmets from that era, and not a single one had horns. The only surviving Viking Age helmet, found in Norway, looks like a simple, rounded iron cap with a guard for the eyes. No frills. Why would anyone wear horns into battle? It's tactically absurd. An enemy could easily catch those horns with an axe or a sword and literally snap the wearer's neck. Vikings were pragmatists who valued their lives. So where did this myth come from? Blame the 19th century and the opera. In the 1870s, costume designer Karl Doppler created outfits for Richard Wagner's opera cycle, The Ring of the Nibelung. To make the characters look more formidable and wild, he added horns to their helmets. The audience loved it. The image stuck so firmly in culture that we still haven't been able to wash it off. Here is an important clarification. Viking is not a race or a nationality. There was no country called Viking Land. The inhabitants of Scandinavia called themselves Northmen, Danes, or simply by the name of their specific lands. The word Viking was actually a job description or a state of mind. In the Old Norse language, the phrase "to go a Viking" meant to go on a sea voyage, an expedition for plunder or for trade. Most of the time, these people were ordinary farmers, fishermen, and blacksmiths. They grew barley, raised livestock, and tried to survive in a harsh climate. But when summer came, the bravest men gathered in groups and boarded their ships. For some, it was a way to get rich. For others, a chance to see the world. And for younger sons who wouldn't inherit the family farm, it was the only way to make a name for themselves. How did the inhabitants of the distant north manage to terrify all of Europe and sail to the edge of the world? The secret lay in their ships. The longships, or drakas, were true masterpieces of engineering. Their main feature was incredible flexibility and a very shallow draft. A longship could sail through a storming ocean, absorbing the blows of massive waves because its hull wasn't rigid. The planks were fastened with flexible tree roots and leather ties, allowing the ship to literally flex with the waves rather than breaking. Furthermore, because of the flat bottom, a longship needed only about 3 feet of water to float. This allowed Vikings to sneak into river mouths and sail deep into the heart of a continent. They could land right on a sandy beach and disembark instantly. If they hit a shallow spot or a waterfall, They would simply lift the ship onto their shoulders and carry it over land to the next body of water. Without these wooden sea serpents, the Viking Age would never have happened. In old chronicles, Vikings were often described as dirty barbarians. But if you read the reports of English chroniclers from that time, you find some hilarious complaints. English monks were annoyed that these northern pagans were far too attractive to the local women. Why? Because the Vikings actually bathed. While bathing wasn't exactly in style in much of medieval Europe, Saturday was the official day of cleanliness for the Vikings. The day was even called Laugardagur, which literally translates to washing day. Every Saturday, they took baths, washed their hair, and cleaned their clothes. Archaeologists constantly find hygiene items at excavation sites: ornate bone combs, tweezers, razors, and even ear spoons for cleaning out wax. Moreover, Vikings were quite fashionable. They loved bright colors: blue, red, and green. And if a Viking had naturally dark hair, he would often use a high-potency soap to bleach it. Yes, the Vikings highly valued the Scandinavian blonde look and spent a lot of time on grooming. Viking society is often pictured as a tyranny of brute force. In reality, they had a very advanced legal system. All major decisions were made at the Thing, a general assembly of the people. This was where disputes were settled, laws were passed, and criminals were judged. The harshest punishment was being declared an outlaw, meaning the person lost the protection of society and could be killed by anyone without consequence. But even more surprising was the status of women. While women in the rest of Europe were essentially the property of their husbands, Scandinavian women held significant rights. When a husband went on a voyage, the woman remained in full charge of the farm. She managed the finances and ran the business. The symbol of her authority was the set of keys she wore on her belt. A Viking woman could even initiate a divorce herself. All she had to do was state the reason in front of witnesses. It could be anything from her husband hitting her to him failing to provide for the family. Upon divorce, the woman took all her property back and remained a respected member of society. We all know that Columbus discovered America in 1492, but history loves a good twist. About 500 years before Columbus, a Viking named Leif Erikson stepped onto the shores of North America. Vikings were incredible navigators. Without compasses, they navigated by the stars, the sun, and the flight patterns of birds. They settled Iceland, then Greenland, and from there, their hunger for discovery pushed them even further west. Leif Erikson reached a land he called Vinland, the land of grapes. Today, we know this as Newfoundland, Canada. The Vikings founded a settlement there and lived for several years. For a long time, these stories were considered mere legends. But in 1960, archaeologists discovered a real Viking settlement in Canada. They found the same style of houses used in Iceland and typical Norse jewelry. This proved it. The Vikings were the first Europeans in the New World. The Viking Age lasted only about 3 centuries, but it left a mark on the entire world. They founded cities that still exist today, traded with the distant East, and mapped new lands. They weren't the monsters from the fairy tales, but they weren't perfect heroes either. They were people of their time, pragmatic, resilient, and incredibly brave. They pushed the boundaries of the world and proved that even the roughest ocean can be conquered if you have a good ship and the will to win. Which fact about the Vikings surprised you the most today? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next story.